Wow, wow, pura vida, mi gente. We'll let some more people come by.
Yeah. No. 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 No.
Wow, wow. All right, we got like 70 strong. That's what's up. Hope you guys enjoyed that intro. Yeah, just get the vibes going. Thanks for tuning in once again. Yeah. So yeah, we're gonna continue reading from the book The Lost Pyramids of Rock Lake, Wisconsin's Sunken Civilization by Frank Joseph. All right. Dun, dun, Wow, wow, yeah, oh yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. So beautiful, yeah. There's reawakening, yeah, yeah. So beautiful. There's reawakening, yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah. All right, all right, all right. Let's get on with it. We're gonna real quick. Let me just go ahead. So this is the book that we're reading today. If you missed part one, hey, welcome everybody in the chat. Thank you for tuning in. Yeah, the Instagram is gone, so we'll take the L, but we got the victory already. Yeah, we got the victory already. They don't know that. So if you don't know that, you know that, you know. Yeah, so let me know if the music at any point is louder than my voice. All right, 77 strong. Please like and share. We can get as many people as possible. Again, we're going to be reading from the book, The Lost Pyramids of Rock Lake, We read so much. Part one, we read the first three chapters in the introduction. Crazy the things they were finding there, right? All the temples, all the monuments, the cone-shaped pyramids, the temples that look like the mounds in Aztalan and Dunn County. The connection, megalithic structures that they could only see the top. It's under there. The whole Shunk Indians, Make sure to catch part one. A lot of good information. The whole research, all the scientists, all the anthropologists, geologists, all the divers, expert divers who saw it. It's there. So make sure you catch that first part. If you haven't yet. Hopefully you guys can hear me good. All right. All right, so I want to give a special shout out to 432 The Drop Radio YouTube channel, and especially Con Drop. That's his channel. And this video right here is from 6 years ago. And I remember watching it. Not the first video I saw of his, but he's doing something I'm doing right now. Reading to you guys, and so I want to give a shout out to him. Make sure you check out the Prester John series. As you see here, Priest King Prester John. This is part one, but it goes all the way to part 121. That's the recent one, Amazon Hebrew Queens and the war with Prester John and Eldad Danite, so, when you're talking about, for me, inspiration, go ahead and do my own research and, start my channel and everything. This guy who literally inspired me. And so, right here, we're going to get a little bit. I was in the back of the classroom always, and for a lot of years, binge watching the videos and just trying to orientate myself with what he was saying and the knowledge of, America being the true old world. Because I wasn't the first one saying that, so this is him here, his beautiful daughter 6 years ago, 6 years ago, and just a little drop here real quick.
Reach that. Bring that one. Hold that one. All right, show the people the book. We have the Lost Tribes and Promised Lands. Read it. You have to read it for them. What does it say?
Lost tribes and
Promised Lands. Lost Tribes. Say Lost Tribes.
lost tribes.
Lost Tribes and Promised Lands. The origins of American racism. All right, so, we're going to get some Prester John drop out of this. We're going to dig into the Beyond the Poles, man. We're going to talk about some stuff. But let's get to this Isaiah 40. Let's go. You ready?
Yeah. It's con drop. Get the drop. Make sure to get the drop. And so you see, this ain't nothing new. People been doing this, been watching, so I just wanted to go ahead and give him a shout out for that. All right. Make sure to go ahead and follow the brother. And I check all the good info he has. It's amazing info on the research. All right. Second. All right. The Lost Pyramids of Rock Lake. Hold up and tuned in. That's what's up. What up? Real quick. Everybody in here, we got 100 strong. Real quick. Give me 2 seconds. Wow, yeah. So we go to chapter 4 of this book. Again, The Lost Pyramids of Rock Lake, Wisconsin Sunken Civilization by Frank Joseph. All right. Says here, Rock Lake's enigmatic Indian shafts. Remember, I was mentioning in the introduction about some Indian shafts by Wayne and May. Every mystery solved brings us closer to the threshold of a greater one, Rachel Carson. Fall 1989 was supposed to be our last dive of the year at Rock Lake. On that cold, blustery Saturday in late October. So again, if you missed the first part, we left off with the author telling us his experience and the research in the 80s, and what he was going through and everything, what he was learning and finding, who he was collaborating with. All right, make sure to get that again. So we're in chapter 4, and he's saying fall 1989 was supposed to be our last dive of the year at Rock Lake. On that cold, blustery Saturday in late October, author Frank Joseph, professor of civil engineering James Schertz, and geologist Lloyd Hornsbostel were exploring the north end for clues to the elusive pyramids. Down under the water, meanwhile, master diver Doug Gosesh, his Illinois assistant, and I cruised our small vessel to the south end. We wanted to relocate a linear structure discovered earlier that summer, but the waves were rough and whitecaps reminded me of driven snow covered the lake. Assigned to stay on board our three-man raft, my job was to hold the safety line steady when the two divers went below. Just as they disappeared over the side, the wind suddenly kicked up, pushing our raft away from their position, marked by bubbles rising to the surface from their regulators. Firmly rooted into place, only a few minutes before the anchor began dragging along the lake bottom. The force of the wind prevented me from staying in the diver's immediate vicinity. Against all my desperate efforts, the raft drifted helplessly in south-southerly direction, heading toward Sandy Beach at the south end. A depth finder was among the equipment. So with nothing else to do, I switched it on just to watch the contours of the lake floor pass along far beneath the bottom of the raft. Suddenly, subsurface subsurface depths began dropping from 30 feet down to 40, 50, 60, even 70 feet. I was surprised because because standard fishing maps of the area showed little more than 20 feet of water here. I watched in fascination as rolling hills undulated across the bottom of the lake at depths of 50 and 60 feet. Clearly, the map makers were wrong. So he's finding out, hey, the landscape there's a little different. It might be a little deeper. There's actually hills and stuff. Now, depths began to abruptly climb back to 30-foot levels. At 29 feet, all readings suddenly dropped off into nothingness, then almost instantly returned to 29 feet. Just then, the distinct image of a vertical shaft going straight down into the bottom of Rock Lake, its depth beyond measure, appeared across the screen. Moments later, a virtually identical target, but wider than the first one, came into view. Then a third shaft appeared, followed immediately by another. Were they lined up in single file? I was quick enough to photograph 3 of the 4 shafts, all of which had dropped to depths beyond the capabilities of the finder to determine. Thereafter, only the lake's smooth bottom slowly spread across the screen. Recovering from my astonishment, I recalled, sorry, I recall reports of Indian shafts, first glimpsed during the mid-1930s by free divers from the University of Wisconsin, swimming team engaged by historian Victor Taylor and his Rock Lake investigations. Just 2 years before my encounter with the shafts, Frank Joseph was boating in the same area when he went over the side. His anchor had refused to take hold of what he assumed, from the same inaccurate fisherman's maps, was a 20-foot lake bottom. He followed the yellow line down to more than 30 feet, where he was surprised to see the anchor swaying free like a pendulum. Beneath him opened up a large hole about 9 feet across. Fortunately, a high early afternoon soon shone almost directly down into the hole, providing unusually good clarity, about 25 feet visibility throughout the yellowish green water. Joseph dove down into the shaft, its walls perfectly sheer. It seemed to him like a gigantic test tube thrust into the floor of the lake, because the lip of the hole was level with the lake bottom at 30 feet below the surface. Sinking deeper into the shaft, he watched his death gauge gradually drop from 30 to 40 feet, then down to 50 and 60. Still, the bottom could not be seen. At 76 feet, Joseph finally reached the lowest part of the shaft. It gave every appearance of being man made. Indeed, when we discussed these large holes with geologist Lloyd Hornsbostel, he said he knew of no natural forces which could produce such perfectly formed features. All right? Man made. I believe the depression Frank Joseph explored was the sudden 70 plus foot drop off that appeared on the screen of our depth finder just before the four narrow shafts were detected. They seemed to have been only 4 to 5 feet in diameter, but their depths must have greatly exceeded the 76 feet indicated by our electronic instrument and earlier experienced by Joseph. In other words, the holes were too deep for the depth finder to determine. Aware that the lake bottom is heavily silted, I wondered why the shafts were not filled in with organic debris. How deep are these apparently bottomless holes? And what are they? Were they subterranean silos used by the ancient inhabitants of Rock Lake when it was only a fraction of its present size? Are they prehistoric wells? Or do they represent something we cannot guess? They are certainly part of the mystery that pervades this strange place. Properly investigated, the Indian shafts may contribute importantly to a wider appreciation of the civilizers who long ago made Rock Lake their home. Right? Long ago. And that was chapter 4. We're moving on to chapter 5. These are quicker, these little chapters here. In chapter 5, ancient pyramids or glacial debris. All right? There are 3 steps in the revelation of any truth. In the first, it is ridiculed. In the second, resisted. In the third, it is considered self-evident. Arthur Schopenhauer. For all our unusual lack of success in glimpsing one of the sunken structures, our hundreds of dives into Rock Lake provided us a thorough acquaintance with the world beneath its surface. It proved to be an unusual body of water, not at all like other glacier-formed lakes we knew. Its floor is mostly a mud desert, but there are hills and gullies so subtly molded into the underwater landscape that it is often difficult to distinguish them from the bottom itself. They could easily conceal a very large structure from a diver already hindered by poor visibility. There are also surprising strange depressions where none ought to be. Once, while close to the western shore where the depth was no more than 7 or 9 feet, we threw out the anchor, but for some reason it would not hold the bottom. I went over the side to investigate, following 20-foot line all the way to its end. I found the anchor swinging straight down on its nylon cord with the bottom far below. I descended to see how deep this unexpected area was and saw during my descent that I was entering a broad depression, about 50 feet wide. My depth gauge finally registered 76 feet above the depression. The water was no more than 9 feet deep in the surrounding area. Such anomalies do not characterize lakes formed by glaciers. Towards the north end of Rock Lake, near the middle, where depths range from 30 to 40 feet, a ridge rises up suddenly to only 14 feet beneath the surface, known as the drop-off. Its western slope plunges at a steep angle to more than 90 feet. The lake's deepest section, Rock Lake, actually resembles 2 different bodies of water below the surface. While the southern half is entirely muddy, the northern is a rocky, in many parts as a stone quarry. When I visited Slovenia in 1990, I stayed near Lake Bled. unquestionably glacier formed and typical of its kind. Other than having comparable sides, its resemblance to Rock Lake was negligible. All right. If you just joined us, we're reading The Lost Pyramids of Rock Lake, Wisconsin Sunken Civilization by Frank Joseph. We're in chapter 5 now. All right. And if you didn't catch the first part, make sure to catch it. Really good information. They're kind of describing the lake right now. And they're saying how weird it is. It's not really like a glacier, a lake made by glacier, you know? It's not typical like that. So, you know, they're describing it got hills, rocks, cliffs. It's just different. And shout out to everybody in the chat. Shout out to everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Wow. Yeah, Ray. Yeah, they're big. They're pretty big. They were describing them as we were seeing last time. All right, here we go. Where did I go? Right, hold on, guys. Let me find my spot again. Okay. The Balkan Lake is round, slightly ovoid, nearly 3 times as deep and with surface resembling a teacup filled with impenetrably turbid water. It is devoid of stones and is unlike Rock Lake, as any other body of water on Earth. Bledsko Jezero, as it is known to the Slovenes, is the classic Ice Age lake, yet it shares virtually nothing in common with Wisconsin's Rock Lake, which was supposedly formed entirely by an identical natural process. Despite its decidedly unglacial appearance, when academics finally broke their long silence on the possibility of a sunken, man made formations, they opined that whatever might lie on the bottom of Rock Lake was certainly the result of the glacier that created it 10,000 years ago. People have been searching for pyramids in that lake forever, said Lyon Goldstein, professor of anthropology at the University of Wisconsin in Madison. Although there is something down there with a pyramidal shape, from all the data I've seen, it appears to be natural formation. All right, she's one of those that don't want to just, accept. With Dr. Goldstein began a general acceptance among her colleagues that the surface formations were actually nothing more than glacial debris. As the glacier that carved out Rock Lake retreated, it left behind mounds of material mistaken by observers for man made objects. Such naturally formed piles are known as drumlins and kames. However, the glacial deposit theory begins to disintegrate with the very definition of these terms. A drumlin is an oval shaped hill, or a long trailing ridge of variously mixed rocks and matter, neither of which matches any of the descriptions of the sunken structures. Kames are likewise steep hills or ridges composed of gravel or sand deposited in contact with glacial ice. No one has ever claimed to have seen anything resembling a came on the bottom of Rock Lake. Moreover, if the structures in question were glacially formed, then Rock Lake is a geologic freak. Sorry, a special rarity, because neither drumlins nor caves are known to occupy the bottom of any other lake on Earth. If the stones John Kennedy retrieved from one of the structures belonged to a drumlin, they should have been scarred from glacial action, tumbling then together into a heap. Instead, they were easily identified as quartzite from a riverbed. They showed unmistakable signs of long term water erosion, not glacial action. And no glacier could have created the volcano or donut shaped stone mounds with their precisely circular craters seen by numerous divers in Rock Lake. All right. Shalom, shalom. All right, welcome, welcome. We're in chapter 5 of the book, The Lost Pyramids of Rock Lake. And they're just letting you know these ain't glacier debris. They don't look nothing like glacier debris and nothing like it. All right. It doesn't match the science they're trying to match it to. Sorry. Again, seen by numerous divers in Rock Lake, numerous experts. Like, when we read the first couple chapters, you guys remember who these people were? Yeah. Despite these elementary observations, Goldstein's glacial deposit theory appears to have become the official explanation within a scientific establishment that disdains the fantastic claims of mere amateurs. R. Birmingham, Wisconsin State archaeologist, and Thomas Cahill, curator of anthropology at the Milwaukee Public Museum, agreed with her that Rock Lake anomalies are only glacial debris. Remarkably, I mean, these people haven't dived or done anything research to do with Rock Lake at all, you know. Remarkably, the real difference between those who believe the structure are man-made and those convinced they are is that the believers are mostly divers who have collectively devoted hundreds of hours of bottom time to the lake. All right, again, like I just said, these people haven't gone and dived and seen it. They haven't done any kind of research. They haven't gone and seen it. Literally, like they're just in their office saying that that's glacial debris, of course. Yeah, gatekeeping is real. All right, guys, gatekeeping is real. That would rewrite history. Remember manifest destiny. Anything found pre-Columbian is to be considered savage. That's their destiny. So again, the people who actually spend hundreds of hours diving and seeing these things, they know what they saw. While the non-believers are largely professional theorists, all right, just like out of Africa theory, like this other like Bering Strait theories, like theories, a lot of theories, right? Professional theorist. That's a good word for a lot of these PhDs, professors, right? Doctors. You, you're not a doctor. You're a professional theorist. That's what you are. I didn't say it. Who have never near the water. They haven't even gone near the lake. They don't even know where it's at. And as Richard Bennett, owner of Wisconsin Diving Academy, said in 1986, I think I've spent enough time underwater to know what's natural and what isn't. I believe those pyramids are not of natural origin. Professional astronomers gratefully acknowledge the observations of responsible amateurs, not so most professional archaeologists and anthropologists. The strategy lies not only in the gap here between the academics and the public, nor in the important discoveries lost or at least sidetracked until rediscovered later, but the physical danger of obliteration of unacknowledged sites of unrecognized value. As Dr. Schurz concluded in his report on Rock Lake's first sonar survey, all right, they're going to quote him right now. 1 second, guys. The underwater features should be protected from destruction by trophy hunting divers until they are at least thoroughly studied. If there is a high probability that they are man-made artifacts themselves, then their future protection should likewise be assured. That very succinctly sums up the chief motivation of everyone who has come to accept the underwater site at Rock Lake for what it really is, namely a forgotten American civilization's city of the dead that must be preserved against damage and destruction. So long as most scientific officials refuse to take the matter seriously, the sunken structures will remain vulnerable to the ravages of irresponsible treasure hunters. We recall with deep felt regret the plundering of Aztlan's pyramids in the last century and the wholesale obliteration of the dozens of effigy mounds that lined the shores of Rock Lake until the 1920s. If in the future the underwater monuments are finally and officially recognized for their human authenticity after they have been damaged or destroyed, the world will know who to blame. The world will know who to blame, right? And that was chapter 5. We're going on to chapter 6, guys. We're going through the book, all right? guys, I'm live. I'm not throwing commercials at all. How can I do that? You know, um, you know, that's how they allow me to stay on here. You gotta be able to make money off me too. You know, if not, they're gonna like, just throw, get rid of me. All right, chapter 6, and this seems like a good chapter because it's called "The Evidence Speaks for Itself." All right. Wow. Yeah. The sources, undisputed. The evidence of scientific research, the experts, it speaks for itself. The evidence. We don't really care about professional theorists or professional opinioners. We don't really care about you, man. Blogging all day, talking, giving opinions. Okay? Your professional theories. All right. So let me put this down a little bit. Yes. We're going to chapter 6, guys. You ready? You guys ready for chapter 6? Make sure we stay on topic, and as long as we're staying on topic, and yeah, Astalan, it actually mentions Astalan a lot. They know it's actually related. It's only 3 miles away, supposedly, from here. So yeah, so chapter 6, the evidence speaks for itself. Man does not have the only memory. The earth remembers. All right, Mama remembers. Mama. The stones remember. If you know how to listen, they will tell you many things. Okay, you gotta know how to listen. Claude Kua Niyuma, Hopi's spiritual leader. All right, wise, wise. Max Noll's description of the conical pyramid he discovered on the Rock Lake in 1937 included a cement-like substance that clung to the portions of the structure. In 1988, Doug Gossage reported finding similar material on a pyramidal mound in the northeastern quadrant. The following year, he was actually able to retrieve fragments of the brittle compound from the limnatus structure. They were taken to Dr. Martin Flowers, professor of geology at the University of Chicago, mineralogical department. His, his examination showed that the whitish coating covering a broad section of the structure's western wall was a calcite-based plaster made by crushing mollusk shells and other calcareous, calcareous material into a fine powder, then mixing it with water to form a thick plaster that hardened as it dried, all right? The type of concrete they created, you see that? Obviously, the process could not have been accomplished underwater through some natural agency, all right? Glaciers don't be doing that, guys. It was a man made plaster, not marl, a naturally occurring mixture of clay limestone. Similar tests at the University of Wisconsin and Madison contradicted Flowers' findings, but samples analyzed there may not have belonged to the same material he studied. But outside evidence points to human manufacture of the apparent cement taken from the sunken structure. Hey, you're very welcome. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Hope you guys enjoying. This is. I mean, I like reading these kind of things. Amazing what is under there. The walls of nearby Astalan, all right, Astalan, the mountains of Astalan were originally coated entirely by the same substance that clings to the Limnatus pyramid. You hear that? Same, same. They ain't not gonna tell you that. The Astalan stockade was plastered over to give it a smooth finish. Precisely the same technique and material were used to coat the far more extensive stockade walls of Cahokia, a Mississippian ceremonial center of grandiose proportions that flourished 1,000 years ago in Illinois, and again at the walls of another ancient city contemporary with and closely resembling Aztlan in southern Indiana, Angel Mounds. All right, Angel Mounds, 65 miles northeast of Angel Mounds, lie the Wyandotte Caves, the Wyandotte Caves, where hundreds of tons of dry limestone were mined by an unknown race over the course of centuries. All right, this is listen, man, it's all connected, right? Hey, much love, Bruce. Thank you. Appreciate you. Thank you. Appreciate you. Much love. All right. So all these cultures, ancient in America, connecting. It seems. Again, same material, same cement, man-made cement. We're not talking about glaciers making this, nature making this. Found and these structures in Rock Lake, right, match the ones in Astalan. They were covered with that, and the ones in Cahokia. Imagine, you know, the same knowledge. Hey, much love, Jay. Thank you. Appreciate you as well, very much. The calcareous material was used in the production of the whitish plaster found. Sorry. At Angel Mounds, Cahokia, Astalan, and Under Rock Lake. They all match, all within the continuity of Mississippian culture. Remember, the Yuchi had the same story that they were coming from Rock Lake. Actually, three different kinds of cement have been found on underwater features in Tiranena's depths. I remember Tiranena. That's the original name of Rock Lake, by the Ho Shunk Indians who were Siouan. Shout out to the Siouan tribes out there in the eastern woodlands. Siouans, a lot of people don't know. There's a lot of Siouan tribes you guys don't know about. Again, so it was called Tiranenas. Tira, Tyranena. Tiranenas, with an S at the end. The darker gray material is heavier and less brittle than its whiter counterpart. The latter has been seen less often beneath the external surfaces of the structures and may have been used to bound the stones into position. The thinner, more plaster-like substance was probably employed as a decorative coating to give the monument a smooth external finish. The same ornamental dressing on the walls, and even on many of the private dwellings and public temples at Angel Mounds, Cahokia, and Astalan. Okay, same. Welcome, welcome. Wow, Bat Shalom. Yeah, we just vibing right now, reading and learning and building. That's what we're doing. Okay, so like the cement and all this is matching all these ancient sites. Again, nobody would ever, connect this and tell, teach things like this because it would, bring up too many questions. Then you got to start explaining yourself too much, and they don't want to do that, you know. So they want to create. They're saying glaciers did all this, right? Glacier, the only glacier in the world, and the only place in the world that did these structures, right, and created cement. Yeah. These two kinds of cement found in Rock Lake might be explained by an alternate source for the material. Salt's Cave, part of Kentucky's Mammoth Cave Park, was mined anciently for gypsum, from which a white plaster was known to have been manufactured. Preserved human fecal droppings in the cave revealed that the miners ate cultivated foods identical to the specialized crops harvested by the original inhabitants of Astalan and did not belong to the hunter-gatherer tribes of the region. Apparently, the Rock Lake inhabitants felt that gypsum was valuable enough to import in from salt caves more than 500 miles away. Perhaps they even worked the gypsum mines themselves. While all the evidence suggests that cone-shaped pyramids were constructed as freestanding stone structures, only occasionally bonded internally with the heavier dark gray adhesive, at least some of the larger tent-shaped mounds were completely coated in limestone mixed plaster. In their original condition, their walls would have appeared smoothly covered, just as the stockades of Astalan and so on presented a flat surface over the post covered by the plaster. The Astalaners' preference for covering their foremost monuments was extended to their temple mounds, which were originally encased in clay caps to give the structures a smooth appearance, the same cultural trait recurring on the buildings on the Rock Lake. All right, the same. It seems clear that then the limestone material retrieved by divers from the subsurface targets is man-made and part of the identical cultural forces prehistorically at work throughout southern Wisconsin and the rest of America's ancient Midwest. Yet a third kind of bonding material encountered on some of the linear stone mounds on the Rock Lake is a smooth, medium gray cement like substance with surprising traces of iron. Divers who retrieved samples for Dr. Robert Salzer's office at Bell Lloyd College reported that the cement covered very broad sections of a sunken ridge-top pyramid. Analysis revealed that the structures in question were once covered by a cap of mixed clay and earth that had not been washed away by water. Instead, it hardened over time into a material resembling smooth adhesive. Here seemed positive proof that the linear features were man-made, ridge-top mounds after all, because the same construction technique compared exactly with some of Aztlan's monuments, such as the Greenwood Group, stone chambers covered by mounds of earth. All right, this is what they're finding here. Hawa, Hawa. Much love. Thanks for tuning in. Much love. Much love. Tales of Chrysalis. J9, thank you for all your help always. Hey, everybody in the chat. Okay. Pura vida, pura vida. But in a letter I received from Dr. Salzer January 8, 1992, he wrote, "My impression is that the apparently unsorted gravel, pebble, cobble, stuff is held together by reddish brown sand, the color being a function of the presence of what is probably iron-rich minerals. Thanks to ancient glacial activity, such iron minerals are regularly present in the soils of southern Wisconsin. While excavating in northern Wisconsin some years ago, I encountered instances where reddish brown sands had been cemented together, and I believe that soil scientists and sedimentologists, wow, I didn't know they had a name, refer to this wholly natural phenomenon as glaying. This apparently occurs when soils, sediments are subjected to long periods of water-logged conditions. It is possible that what you have is an example of such consolidated sediments. One thing seems clear to me. I would expect that any man-made plaster or cement would contain carbonates in some form or another, and I do not believe that such carbonates are present. Later, in a telephone conversation, Dr. Seltzer conceded that glayed might have been produced if the structures on which the process appears were originally covered with earth, as were the stone chambers of Aztlan's Greenwood mounds. For example, were Aztlan's Pyramid of the Sun submerged underwater for many centuries, its exterior too could harden into, and that's what I was thinking. And the thing when I was saying that, what if they were like mounds, a lot of some of them, and already covered, and then they got underwater. That's why there's so much mud or silt on it. So they're saying, so what if Aztlan's pyramids, merged underwater for centuries? Its exterior too would harden into a gley. It appears then that this third kind of suspected cement is not some anciently artificial adhesive, although it may be the natural result of man-made coating of earth that originally capped the elongated pyramids before they were drowned. This interpretation is lent some credence by the fact that in all the bottom time divers have devoted to exploring Rock Lake since 1937, they have never encountered anything even faintly resembling clay except on the pyramidal structures. Less equivocal evidence of human activity at the bottom of Rock Lake comprises the drowned effigies in its eastern quadrant. The turtle and headless man mounds found by our side scan sonar were certainly among the most thrilling discoveries ever made in that mysterious body of water. They constitute exciting proof that remnants of a lost culture do indeed exist on the murky floor. Both are lent splendid authenticity by parallel effigies found on nearby dry land, outside the walls of Aztlan itself. An archaeological dig unearthed a ritual burial of a tall man, since referred to as the giant. Wow, I didn't know that. Who had been interred in a tomb still containing all the marks of respect, simple grave goods, but curiously minus a head. Close by, and Jefferson. Oh, you see that? So they got the other part of the body over there. A tall man with no head, and then they found a mound head, a head. What is it? A, a headless. Wait. I'm sorry, I might be reading it wrong. So okay, headless man. Okay, yeah, the headless man. So it's kind of like the same. They're finding the same thing over there in Astalon. All right, where was it? Now I lost where it was. Okay, my fault. My fault. Bear with me, guys. We live. Have patience. Hey, one love, one love. Hey, Cosmic Soul. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. Appreciate you guys. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure, let me know if at any moment the music's louder than my voice. Okay. So they found this tall man referred to as a giant in Astalan, right? And curiously, minus a head. So he's headless, right? Close by in Jefferson County, another headless giant was surveyed in the late 19th century before its unfortunate obliteration under the plow. The mound was 79 feet long and represented a decapitated man. Oh, you see everything they destroyed? Clearly, ritual beheading at Rock Lake Astalan belonged to some important cult practice observed by the ancient inhabitants. That Jefferson County's headless giant mound was part of the ceremonial life of the Rock Lake area seems clear, if only because it was unique among the more than 10,000 effigies that once spread so magnificently across the Wisconsin landscape. 10,000 effigies that you know, they took down. So these headless giants, right? Was that like a remembrance of them actually, cutting the heads off giants? Who knows? So again, tens of thousands of effigies that once, wow, they were across Wisconsin landscape. Did you know that? A study of the side scan map revealed yet another strange feature displayed by the Rock Lake effigy mounds. About 350 feet from them, opposite the shore toward the swimming area, the sonar identified a low circle on the mud bottom. I recognized it at once from its location as the same heap of stones from which I retrieved a brick qualified as man-made by Dr. Salzer in 1988. Remember? Because he said it was shipped off. Somebody shipped it off. It was human. It wasn't natural. Investigators knew then that the supposed rock pile was in fact the collapsed remains of a cone-shaped structure. Our subsurface map showed that this ruined pyramid was oriented due west on a straight alignment with the headless man mound. From this conical monument, an observer would have seen the sun set over the headless man, the turtle, or through the gap between them on special days of the year when the area was still dry land. The orientation of the effigies to the circular monument is beyond question and constitutes another marvelous piece of valid evidence authenticating the man-made origins of Rock Lake's underwater objects. All right, man-made. Reaffirming what authenticity is the symbolic interrelationship of the three figures, sunset on the emblems of death, the headless man, and transcendence, the turtle, with a magical period in between them, both when they are suspended in a twilight balance. The esoteric imagery that once functioned at what has long since become Rock Lake must have been a dramatic and uplifting nature. Moreover, the effigy's mound's alignment to the conical pyramid belonged to the same cosmic concept, similarly in use among the complementary astronomical fixes of nearby Astalan. The ceremonial center skeleton without a skull must likely belong to the central player in one of these religious dramas. The headless man's companion mound was no less enlightening about ancient Tiranena, all right, that's the ancient name of Rock Lake by the Ho Chunk Indian, Tiranena. Along the turtle signifies the ability to survive both on land and in the water. It also represents coming ashore, implying arrival by sea. Numerous traditions of Native American peoples, including the Ho-Chunk, who once occupied the Jefferson County area, claim their ancestors came to North America, referred to as Turtle Island, after the Great Flood destroyed their former world. The name Turtle Island describes this ancestral arrival over the waters by boat, just as the turtle wades ashore, wearing its shell. The turtle and man mounds in Rock Lake are the same size and placed side by side. The juxtaposition is intentional. It may have been part of a turtle cult of the dead. May have, all right? This is when he starts guessing right here. Given Rock Lake's identity as a necropolis, all right? It's not just a couple of, structures, one or two. It was a necropolis, right? This is like a real big megalithic city right here. What's something's going on here. It's probably more even underground. Like, this is huge here. This is almost like whatever's on the Grand Canyon, right? What's over there. This is like a canyon right here almost, you know. So given Rock Lake's identity as a necropolis, the western orientation of the two mounds and the turtle shell excavated from Astalan's ritual grave site seem appropriate. Indeed, as mentioned earlier, the turtle makes a perfect transformational creature as it crosses over from one dimension into another, just as the human soul passes from the earthly existence through the waters of death. While all the bones found thus far have been traced to deer, a specimen of human remains was recovered from Rock Lake as recently as 1982 when the large hank of a man's scalp was pulled into the boat of a surprised fisherman, who immediately notified the police. Divers from the Lake Mills Fire Department scoured the waters in which it was hauled out for 3 days, interrupted only by nightfall, but encountered no trace of the body they expected to find. There were no reports of lake accidents or missing persons, and the authorities chalked up the discovery to yet another mystery of their mysterious lake. But ever since, thoughtful pyramid hunters have wondered if the scalp in fact belonged to a body of one of the ancient dead reposing in a stone monument that had been sufficiently ruined by time for a fisherman's hook to catch on the exposed corpse still otherwise preserved in Rock Lake's icy waters. Or perhaps it was a trophy buried as a grave good along with the deceased and accidentally snagged by the fishermen. Wisconsin's aboriginals were known, after all, to take scalps as honorable prizes in war. For investigators aware of the abundant evidence supporting the lake as an ancient necropolis, the scalp retrieved from its waters underscores their conclusions. A scalp. But the evidence most sought after has proved the most elusive. Out of all the many hundreds, at least, out of all the many hundreds of proofs they got, this one right here is about to mention, I guess, at least of photographs taken above and below Rock Lake, only a tiny handful document the object observed since the turn of the century. Given the extremely difficult conditions in this moody body of water, lack of success is not surprising. Numerous interacting factors of currents, varying temperatures, lighting, algae bloom, the ever present silt, wave action, boat traffic, wind, rain, even passing clouds all conspire to frustrate the most persistent photographer. In a word, Rock Lake is uncooperative. Its typical optimum visibility of 10 feet simply does not allow a camera to be pulled back far enough to take in a structure in its entirety, resulting in photographs that show only fields of rocks. And that's kind of what it shows here, guys. Like the pictures they got, it looks just like a bunch of rocks, because it's close up. It can't really show everything. So, and it's muddy, so you can't really see the shapes, right? It just looks like a pile of rocks. And either way, they're not supposed to be piled up like that. That's the point. Like, there's no way nature like did this. Like, so they, we went over it on part one. If you guys haven't seen it, or you didn't hear the reading. So it's almost impossible to photograph correctly, right? So they only be showing fields of rocks. Doug Goldsuch's videotape of the limnatus features somewhat overcame this restriction. He kept the camera rolling as he swung along the full length of the target, providing the viewer with an improved conception of its pyramidal configuration. Subsurface photography of large objects with corners and massive bulk are particularly difficult subjects because of the distortion factor that naturally occurs in water. Contrasts are lost and depth of field flattens out. Lenses exist to somewhat correct these handicaps, but they are costly and not always effective. As fate would have it, the finest aerial photograph of the Great Triangle in the southern half of Rock Lake were destroyed by fire, huh? Steve Dempsey's color slides, which were featured at a meeting of Lake Mill's Ancient Earthwork Society in the late 1980s, clearly showed the precise outlines of the monument figure beneath the surface. The loss of these superb photographs is still keenly felt. Oh, wow. How convenient that they burned it, huh? Underwater artificial lights are worse than useless because their radiance reflects back from all the detritus hanging suspended in the water. Photographs in Rock Lake and over it are entirely matters of thorough advanced preparation, superhuman patience, and, most importantly, luck. Only into my fifth year investigation were the gods kind enough to part the veils and allow us to take a few relatively clear photographs that show the structures and all their man made magnificence. But more significant evidence is available among the many eyewitnesses to Rock Lake's subsurface anomalies. The people who claim to have seen its lost pyramids are not a collection of crackpots and overheated enthusiasts. They include diving instructors, surveyors, teachers, university professors, salvage operators, newspaper photographers, doctors, persons whose livelihood depends on their training and expertise as professional observers. It is difficult to dismiss the observations as Max Knoll, inventor of the scuba, holder of world diving records, and scientific pioneer in underwater technology, that three generations of highly qualified and reliable persons have encountered the sunken structures should give even the severest critic pause. If the question of Rock Lake's mystery were tested in a court of law, the men and women who could testify on his behalf would make star witness. In addition to their number are the many not so highly trained, but nonetheless intelligent and honest individuals whose desire to learn the truth is no less a motivation of their quest. All of them have acted with a consistent sense of responsibility, a high standard of behavior that has enabled many years of research to continue without injury or mishap to anyone. Such a record of safety and hard work does not bespeak clowns playing at archaeology, but rather typifies serious investigators who want to uncover the lost history of their country. Their observations weigh just as significantly in the balance of opinion as the most convincing material evidence. All right, that's chapter 6. And I think we can read chapter 7. Let me see. Yeah, we only got, I just don't want to do another 4 hour one, you know. Let's see how big chapter 7 is. Yeah. Oh, it's not even long at all. Let's read chapter 7 real quick, guys. Hope you're enjoying so far. I mean, we're getting through this book, right? Chapter 7, right? Chapter 7. Yeah. Hawa. Yeah, pura vida, mi gente. Yeah, that's what they were trying to do, I guess, get inside. They found some shafts we were reading earlier. Um, but some of them are like just like piles of rock, it seems, or something, Like, I don't know if I think what they were saying in the first part is that these are the top of the structures, they're only seeing the tops. And these are like the roofs. It might go down even more. You like the long lives, okay. Let's go. Well, it's still early, we haven't even been an hour yet, I think. Well, we have kind of like an hour, but. So we're going to read chapter 7. All right, here we go. You guys excited? I'm excited. Chapter 7. What are the pyramids and how were they made? Make not that impossible which seems unlikely. Shakespeare, aka Francis Bacon. I don't know. Measure for measure. The stone formations at the bottom of Rock Lake as much resemble the temple mounds of Aztalan. Oh man, why does this keep? Hold on. All right, guys, 1 second. Gotta make sure of something. Make sure YouTube ain't messing with me. I think they are. Hold on. Okay, they're so good. So good. All right. The stone formation at the bottom of Rock Lake as much resemble the temple mounds of Aztalan as they do those of the earlier, although closely related, ceremonial center at Cahokia, some 300 miles away, and another Mississippian site in Wisconsin. Northwest of the Aztalan enclosure, a row of dome-shaped earthen mounds on the top of a rise running north to south finds a very close parallel in the group of stone chimneys of approximate, if not equal dimensions atop a former stream bank. Likewise, in a north-south line in a central section of the lake referred to as the Greenwood Coop of the Aztalan domes and closed cone-shaped stone pyramids. Mentioned in Chapter 3 was the discovery on November 3rd, 1990, of an underwater volcano like configuration identical, save only for its stone construction, to ancient earthgraves in Dunn County, Wisconsin. Other sunken structures are duplicated in Cahokia's mounds. The colossal tent-shaped feature in rock lakes such as the Limnatus are known as ridgetop figures at the Illinois site. Conical mounds may be seen there as well, together with the so-called breadloaf type encountered less frequently in the lake. Excavations at Cahokia revealed the three classes of mounds found identically on the Rock Lake were sepulchres reflecting the status of the individuals they contained. Conical burials held a single body or a group of only 4 or 5 persons and are assumed to have belonged exclusively to men and families of special importance. Perhaps they were outstanding warriors or shamans. The long, ridge-top mounds were reserved for rulers, certainly the most powerful personages in society, because their contents revealed elaborate burials of mica flakes imported from New England, sheets of copper from Michigan, abundant shells from the Gulf of Mexico, and hundreds of sacrificed maidens. Here too is valid comparison with the Rock Lake discovery made by Michael Kuzka's divers when they found a cache of shells in a ridge-top structure, the bread loaf. Structures were ossuaries, reliquaries for thousands of mixed human bones, all belonging to the aristocrats who served the rulers and organized the lower orders of their society. Construction practices were similarly applied to the three types. Pits were dug for the deceased, then covered over with a heap of earth, which was worked into the desired configuration and raised in several alternating levels of internally reinforcing clay to hold the structure's shape. Sometimes mounds were begun before burial, and bodies were placed on the first layer on tier upon which the monument was completed. The features on the bottom of Rock Lake correspond to the Cahokia mounds, differing only in the materials used. Graves were dug for the dead on the shores of the former lake level along the banks of the streams which drained into it. Stones transported from the nearby river due north of the site were heaped up over the burial to form a ridge top, breadloaf, or conical design, and bonded by a calcium carbonate adhesive. Wayne May speculates that the glacial debris. 1 second, guys. So Wayne May speculates that the glacial debris deposited in the north end of the lake was used as construction material by the ancient pyramid builders, who regarded it as a natural quarry close at hand. In any case, the monuments are solid structures with no internal chambers. All right, no internal chambers. So somebody was asking if they can get in. The ones they're finding right here, you know, save the shallow pits on which they sit. although some burials may have laid out on the lower platforms or unfinished tombs, which were subsequently completed on top of earlier graves, as funeral architects did in Cahokia. Finally, the full length of the pyramid's exterior was coated with a limestone or gypsum-based plaster that gave the structure a smooth white appearance. Not all the features were so coated, however, and none of the conical mounds show evidence of decorative finish, although it may have dissolved or disintegrated over the centuries. But similarities between Cahokia and Rock Lake do not end in comparison of building styles. Just as the Limnatis and its companion structures were built on the shore of the original glacier lake, so the leading conical and ridge-top mounds in Cahokia Central Plaza stood on the shore of what was formerly an artificial tarn, a sacred lake. You guys know that? All right, in Cahokia, they used to have a shore, an artificial lake they made. Artificial lake? Wow. Or an artificial tarn, a sacred lake. Astalon itself suggests how the inverted ice cream cone like pyramids standing on the floor of Rock Lake were made. Some of the mounds in the Greenwood group overlooking the walled enclosure contained stone cones. Their builders began by laying out an unmortared circle of stones, piling them on top of each other. As the levels ascended at an inclined angle, a corresponding strata of earth rose as a platform on which the builders stood until the top of the stone pyramid was completed. It would have been hidden inside the surrounding dome of earth, in which its function was to securely hold the astronomical alignment post that projected from the top of the mound. Hey, what's up, family? Thanks for tuning in. Again, we're reading The Lost Pyramids of Rock Lake, Wisconsin's Sunken Civilization. We're in chapter 7, towards the end of it. All right. This Astalan parallel may explain why some of the chimneys at the bottom of Rock Lake appear to be made of nothing more than stone piled up on top of each other into the shape of an inverted cone without any sign of a bonding substance. Perhaps like their Greenwood counterparts, they were originally used to stabilize alignment posts inside earthen mounds long since washed away by the water, leaving the conical stone cores as nothing more than standing piles. All right, so that could be the inside of the mounds. So maybe mounds, right? The dirt mounds, they might have some like rocks that help them get shaped. So before they start piling the rock on top of it, I mean the dirt or the mud on top of it, right? And so that's what they're saying. Maybe the mud already washed off because this is underwater, and it just all you're seeing is the stone structures. It's like the base, it's like the foundation, right? It's like the mold, the molding. That's what they're I think they're saying right here. So, leaving their conical stone cores as nothing more than freestanding piles. The unmortared condition might explain their circular heaps of like stones, giving the appearance of a collapsed building found on the lake bottom. Some at least were unable to stand and did indeed fall in on themselves. Moreover, a few of the chimney types discovered in 1991 did not rise to a pointed apex. Their tops were open and hollow, as were the Greenwood Group mounds. Perhaps these rock lake cones were likewise the stabilizing mounds for astronomical fixes when they stood on dry land many centuries ago. Resemblances between the structures on the Rock Lake and those of other ancient sites in the Midwest make a persuasive argument on behalf of the authenticity of the sunken monuments, and although there are no plans to excavate them, their close correspondence to the funeral architecture of Cahokia, Astalon, and Dunn County clearly identifies the underwater features as tombs. Doubtless, their many hundreds of tons of stone still conceal the remains of the men who organized, administered, and led Wisconsin's forgotten civilization. Hmm. And that's the end of chapter 7. All right. And now we're going to read chapter 8. It's not that long either, guys. We're just going through the book right here, right? Hope you guys enjoying. No, brother, you're very welcome. Thanks for tuning in. So we're in chapter 8. Chapter 8. Oh man, it just disappears. There you go. How did the pyramid sink? How did they sink? We all agree that your theory is mad. The problem that divides us is this: it is sufficiently crazy to be right. Niels Bohr. Since they were first glimpsed from Claude and Lee Wilson's boat at the turn of the century, several theories have been advanced to explain how pyramids got to the bottom of Rock Lake. An early explanation had Paleo Indians rafting tons of stones out onto the lake, into which they were dumped through a kind of funnel or chute made of bark to distribute the stones in a roughly pyramidal configuration. Why anyone would have gone to such trouble was not explained by the proponents of this theory. Victor Taylor, the schoolteacher who organized the first serious inquiry of the structures in 1935, learned through his research that a prolonged drought took place in southern Wisconsin, coincidental with the last days of Aztlan, now known as the Little Ice Age, the first half of the 14th century witnessed an extended period of cold, dry air that prevented rainfall, perhaps for several years. Taylor speculated that the lake dropped far below its normal levels at this time, practically drying up until rocky debris from the glacier that formed it 9,000 years before it was exposed. With these stones, the ancient inhabitants built pyramidal formations to flatter their gods in an effort to regain divine favor and call back the life-giving rains. In subsequent years, the lake rose to its former levels, submerging the structures. Dendrocon whoa, Dendrochronology, or the dating of past events as revealed by tree ring patterns, okay, now I know what it's called, confirms that an important drought took place in the Lake Mills area around the time Aztlan was evacuated. While lake levels must have been affected by prolonged rainless conditions, and at least some of the structures, which today lie between 12 to 18 feet beneath the surface, may have been exposed, it seems unlikely that the levels were low enough to allow the construction of the Limb Natis, the Kennedy, and other features presently under more than 60 feet of water. All right? I know they're going to get to it. It's got to be old. 700 years ago, Rock Lake could have been 15 feet lower than it is today. But given even the consequences of an exceptionally long drought, the stone structures would still lie at least 30 to 40 feet beneath the surface. Moreover, Rock Lake is a spring fed and less dependent on rainfall for its existence. Our side scan sonar surveys clearly showed several previous lake levels going back 3,500 years, and along the oldest of these, on what had been the shoreline, were found virtually all of the stone structures, okay? On the oldest part, where the ancient shoreline was, remember what they were finding when we read the first couple chapters? That's where most of these structures were found, right? They were literally at the shore of this lake. It would appear then that they were built at a time when the lake was substantially. Second. Wow, wow. It would appear then that they were built at a time when the lake was substantially lower than its present level, and an era that preceded by many centuries the beginning of Aztlan. All right, this is before Aztlan, in the early 12th century. In order for them to have been built in their deep water location, they must have been constructed when Rock Lake was only a fraction of its present size, 3.5 millennia ago. And all that time, the natural springs may have been sufficient to expand the lake and raise its water levels, but their output, unless drastically greater in the ancient past, would have been wholly unable to enlarge little more than a pond about 350 feet long, 120 feet across, and perhaps 30 feet deep, into a lake 2.5 miles wide and 90 feet at its deepest point. There is yet more dramatic explanation for the existence of the stone monuments 60 feet down. They were deliberately sunk. For evidence, investigators cite a large deep riverbed lying only 300 feet north of Rock Lake. Many centuries ago, it fed a tributary to the Crawfish River that still flows through Aztalan. A scenario for what took place begins with the ancient civilizers erecting stone temples and tombs along the shores of the tiny glacier lake and on the banks of its streams. As their culture began to fall, perhaps to hostile elements within society or invaders from without, or because the copper trade collapsed, they sought to protect their sacred burial grounds from profanation. They excavated a canal from the powerful river lying due north, directing its waters into the holy precinct and inundating all its shrines and tombs underwater that grew to become Rock Lake. All right, so that's one of the things they're theorizing. Any trace of the canal that caused the flood was obliterated when the modern beach and road were installed, but the dry riverbed is still clearly discernible. Excavating the necessary canal by no means lay beyond the technical abilities of the ancient inhabitants. They were known to have completed serious irrigation projects, the most notable being a stone aqueduct that extended from the northern end of Astalan, perhaps to Rock Lake itself, 3 miles away. All right, a canal connecting them. A canal only 300 feet long would certainly have presented far less of an engineering challenge. The ancient engineers may have even controlled lake levels with their canal in order to perform the walk on water trick described in Ho Shunk tradition. Perhaps they allowed the water to just cover the tops of the larger, deeper structures, over which the torch bearing shamans paraded to the stone monuments on a higher ground, where they appeared as islets or to float on the water. After the shaman civilization declined, the canal was neglected and the river eventually broke through its sluices to inundate the remainder of the lake. Substant- Substantiation for the flood theory rests largely, although not entirely, in persistent Native American traditions. So that part, that theory is coming from the Native American myths and legends. That's how they're saying. The Menomonee, whose connections with Rock Lake through the ancient copper trade was certain, believed that the underworld spirits caused a frightful deluge, after which they went to dwell forever at the bottom of Sacred Lake. The Jockey Indians claimed the cone-shaped pyramids at the bottom of Rock Lake were shrines whose apexes were intentionally broken off to deconsecrate them before they were flooded underwater to protect them from blasphemers. A particularly unusual find was made by divers working on leads supplied by the side scan sonar in the summer of 1990 when they discovered an earthquake fault line running north and south a quarter of a mile from the northern shore. Speculation at once arose that some seismic violence may have broken open a passage from the river running north of the site into the little glacial valley to abruptly inundate the sacred area with a cataclysmic flood. I smiled to think that my own search for Atlantics had brought me to an Atlantean apocalypse in Wisconsin. An Atlantean apocalypse in Wisconsin. But there was no way to determine the age of the Rock Lake Fault, which might predate human occupation of the area by many thousands of years. There was not enough evidence to positively connect the submarine earthquake fault line with a possible flood that resulted in Rock Lake. In any case, the lake rose altogether by a remarkable 60 feet after 1500 BC. All right, it rose after 1500 BC, right, 60 feet. And even though man-made dams beginning in the 1830s. So, and remember the dams they built in the 1830s. Look how early they built dams here. This is before the 1900s, right? We got the Georgia dams, right? So, the beginning in the 1830s, they raised levels from 7 to 20 feet. It is difficult to account for some natural occurrence that could have dumped at least another 40 feet of water into the lake in only 3,000 years. You guys hear what's going on here? They're saying there was some kind of all of a sudden flood, like before the dams, right? Before the dams did, flooded it some more. And the dams didn't do as much as the ancient flood. It literally seems like there was a kind of flood there, right? Also, the notion of a lake, also the notion of lake levels controlled by ancient chiefs to overawe and thereby manipulate their subservient classes coincides with known cultural patterns at Aztalan. There, its pyramid of the sun, in the keeping of ruling aristocrats, similarly impressed the laboring masses of farmers, hunters, and artisans by predicting significant celestial phenomena. It is nonetheless thrilling to wonder if the stone temples and tombs lying on the bottom of Rock Lake were long ago intentionally flooded by a man made deluge to save them from desecration or use them as part of a magical drama to enthrall their people. Logically, such a flood must have taken place either through human engineering or natural seismic forces, because nothing else can explain the 40 to 50-foot increase in level of Rock Lake after 1500 BC, either through the intentions of man or the will of nature. Wisconsin does indeed have its own Atlantis. All right, Wisconsin, you got your own Atlantis. All right, this is the end of chapter 8. And we're gonna read chapter 9. It's not it's literally 2 pages, so a couple pages. Hope you guys enjoying the night, the reading, enjoying yourself, drinking your coffee or tea, lying down, or you rolled up, you chilling, meditation. I actually got to take a little water break of my a little juice break actually. Just give me a second, guys, and we're gonna read chapter 9. Hold on. It's actually not gonna be that long. Maybe very, very quick. Wow, wow, yeah. Pura vida. That's what's up, John. Doe. That's what's up. All right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And we go to chapter 9 again. We're reading the book, The Lost Pyramids of Rock Lake, Wisconsin's Sunken Civilization by Frank Joseph. You can find the book on Amazon. We'll be sharing it, on my Patreon page for my Patreons. Just give me some time to scan it, guys. It takes some time. Yeah, so chapter 9. How old are the pyramids? When the academic experts state that something is possible, they are probably right. When they state that something is impossible, they are probably wrong. All right. Again, professional theorist. You got your PhD, huh? And that was Arthur C. Clarke who said that. Until the Sea Surge finished her sweep of the bottom of Rock Lake, the Sea Surge was a boat at that Sonar's Cannon, I believe. We were reading in the beginning chapters. So as it was sweeping the bottom of Rock Lake, the structures there defied all attempts to date them. It was generally assumed, however, that Victor Taylor had been correct when he determined that they were built as a religious response to the Little Ice Age drought of the early 1300s. But when the prehistoric lake levels were defined for the first time by the side scan sonar, Dr. Schurz reported that the former shoreline, on which Bass Rock Bar, Limnatus, Kennedy, and several of the larger, deeper structures rested, represented the actual limits of the lake around 1500 BC. The date came as a total shock to all investigators and seemed to take Tiranena in a single stroke completely out of Aztlan's cultural orbit. Remember, Tiranena is the name, the ancient name the Ho Chunk gave to this place. It's literally like Tir, Nina, Tiranena. Yet this period fits in perfectly with Aztlan's raison d'etat, or raison d'estat, as copper mining town. Michigan's mines in the Upper Peninsula were primarily worked from 3000 to 1200 BC, the Michigan mines. Same period, guys. So the society that built Rock Lake's sunken necropolis flourished at the same time the copper trade was booming. Copper trade, ancient copper trade in America, yeah, but we were savages, right? And again, who was providing copper to the world at this time? The purest copper. Rock Lake was probably an early way station centrally located for shippers of that trade during voyages from Michigan to Mississippi, to the Mississippi. Hidden position just below the heavy snow line made it a natural and ideal stopover or clearinghouse for the cargoes of raw minerals and their handlers. The site, presently under 60 feet of water, must have been occupied before 1500 BC. All right? It must have been occupied before 1500 BC, guys, because such large structures are the products of a prosperous, populous society, which developed out of the rich copper trade over 18 centuries. Settlement in such a fortuitous location was wonderfully situated for the accumulation of wealth. It may have collapsed only when the copper mines were suddenly abandoned in 1200 BC. The earliest reliable date for Aztlan is around AD 1100. The enormous gap in time between events in Rock Lake and the first known settlement of Aztlan in the first decades of the 12th century undoubtedly results from insufficient excavation. And again, we got to trust the carbon datings, right? Of Aztlan, right? Only a fraction of the enclosure and its immediate environs were researched, and all studies have been confined to its later phases. More extensive and deeper subsoil investigations could push occupation periods further back in time. Despite the two millennia separating Aztlan's earliest known dates from Tiranena, the Rock Lake precinct, even in ruins and partially or even completely submerged, must have been well known for centuries after its abandonment throughout ancient Mid America, as much for its unique setting as for the sanctity of its tombs. Otherwise, the Aztlaners would not have chosen the Rock Lake area in which to settle. If Tiranena was the beginning of civilization in prehistoric Wisconsin, Aztlan was its end. Everything that came in between is unknown. The stone structures today nearest the surface may have been raised, or in any case, used by 12th century builders from nearby Aztlan when lake levels were much lower than at present. There is no doubt, however, that the much larger monuments, now lying 60 feet down, stood along the former shoreline, gleaming in the sunshine of 35 centuries ago. Yeah, was that was chapter 9, and we're in chapter 10, and we're reading the Lost Pyramids of Rock Lake, Wisconsin Sunken Civilization. Make sure you guys stay in topic, all right? All right. Free Papa, I know you've trolled before, like I know. So you're saying, did you know that this picture is fake? Like, duh, it's a thumbnail. It's a thumbnail. We're not talking about pictures here. We're reading a book. You out of here, man. I think it's illegal. You're talking about something else, man. Thanks for trying again. Like you know, I know who you are, man. Come on, man. You've trolled me before. All right. So what are we talking about? We ain't talking about DNA either. All right. So great blackness. All right. So that's okay. Yeah. All right. Got rid of you too. Great blackness. How funny you guys came at the same time, right? Yeah. So we learned something. The black veteran for just to be FBA. See, so now you guys want to troll. Okay, you guys are corny. Like really, like we building here, right? We're reading, we're being positive, and you guys came to troll. So that's your natural nature to be evil like that, right? To be childish, because we ain't the same. You're right. We ain't the same. I don't roll like that, and most of the people that follow me don't roll like that, man. We respect people, man. You know, we're live. Hey, Tales of Chrysalis, thank you. Appreciate you. Much love, much love. And I'm sorry to everybody that's here listening and paying attention. Just had to get rid of a couple trolls. Hey, J9, you know, make sure I'm gonna continue reading chapter 10. You know, if you see them come back, they come in packs. I guess it's like childish. But anyways, we're gonna go to chapter 10. We're gonna continue the positive. We gotta hold on one second. Check this out, guys. We're gonna drift at 432 hertz. All right. All right, all right. That's what's up. So yeah, that kind of scares them away too. The frequencies, yeah, the right frequencies. This is literally a 432. Hey, thank you for everything you. Hey, thank you. Actually, hey, much love, sci-fi, much love. Thanks for all the support. I know you've been following for a while. Seen you in the chat a lot. Thank you, thank you. So we're gonna go to chapter 10. Again, the Lost Pyramids of Rock Lake, Wisconsin Sunken Civilization. All right. Native Americans remember the pyramid drama. Even the rocks were seemed to be dumb as they swelter in the sun along the silent shore, thrilled with memories of stirring events connected with the lives of my people. Chief Seattle, 1854. You're very welcome. Thank you. Appreciate all you guys. I mean, sorry. You're very welcome. Ho-Chunk Winnebago Indians resided in the Lake Mills area. When the first white settlers arrived during the early 1830s, the Ho-Chunk-Garra, or fish eaters, as they sometimes referred to themselves, preceded the European newcomers by perhaps 2 centuries, but numerous other tribes wandered back and forth across southern Wisconsin long before them. The earliest known inhabitants of the area were the Mandans. Among the most interesting and skilled of all the indigenous peoples, they too erected stockaded walls, although not so extensive or magnificent as Aztlan's ramparts, and preserved intriguing traditions of ancestral arrivals from a great flood. All right, so we also got, the Mandans, saying their legends coming out of underground, coming out of underground. I didn't know the Mandans went all the way back to Rock Lake. I'm finding all this out right now. Wisconsin seems to be just like, the whole Ohio area. That was the seed, that was the seed place, where a lot of, things came out of. That's why Ohio is called, the start of it all. This is all future videos. We've been doing a lot of studying and research and to pinpoint certain things, you know. And then we got the Serpent Mound that has something to do with it, the seed, right? And so we'll get into that. So Wisconsin, all these places are all connected, right? The mound builders, the Hopewell culture, Mississippian culture, the old rivers all connect to Wisconsin and all that, going down into the Mississippi, you know. So the whole chunk are suing. Same people that came out of Ohio. That's why I was mentioning that. The whole chunk were living there. The Mondans eventually went down to a different area. It says, but the Mondans were builders of neither the underwater necropolis of Rock Lake nor the ceremonial enclosure of Astalan. Of Sioux and Stock, the whole chunk maintained an oral heritage of all those tribes who came before them, and a special body of folk memories called the Warrock. Recited histories of the region. It was distinct from the Waku, which dealt with religious and nature tales recounted only in wintertime. The Warrock was not a collection of fables, but the veritable tribal memory of past events. This is real historical stuff, sometimes stretching back many generations. Primitive societies are generally ultra conservative in the preservation of their folklore, and exampled by Homer's Iliad, an oral tradition of events separated by at least 400 years from the bard. The Native American memory of Rock Lake and Astalan was enshrined in the Warrock, which almost sounds like Torak. Torah, Warrock. Torah, Warrock. Torah, Warrock. Oh, man. Hey, man. We can't make this up, man. Shout out to Drop Nation. uh, so all this was in the bodies recalled in the Warrock, right? Where are we? Hold on. Which the whole chunk were willing to share with the whites until too many greedy individuals, hearing of the ancient civilizers, dug up Astalan's mounds in search of non existent treasure. The whole chunk henceforward kept the Warrock to themselves, save for the rare confidence of a tribal elder and a trustworthy white man. When the first European settlers reached the shores of Rock Lake in the 1830s, they saw several little islands all surmounted by curious stone buildings. These were the raw teepees the Ho Chunk said belonged originally to the old foreign chiefs. They were a tribe of powerful sorcerers who allowed no one near the lake except on special occasions. All right, this is the history of the Ho Chunk, what they're saying about the ancient people there. Then everybody had to attend magical ceremonies down by the shore, always at night, when the moon and stars were worshipped as gods, to demonstrate the particular favor that was given to them by heaven. The ancient shamans paraded out across the face of the waters with blazing torches outstretched in both hands. They walked to the sacred islands which supported the temples and shrines of their most honored dead. But their procession across the lake was a trick because only they knew the exact positions of stone causeways lying just beneath the surface. According to Dr. James Schertz, the Menominee have known for unknown centuries about the conical mounds at the bottom of Rock Lake. Tribal elders, the record keepers of their nation, say that at least some of the submerged monuments are the same as northern Michigan's Hokasawa pits, rough stone towers resembling fire breaks, but of a spiritual significance the Menominee are still reluctant to share with outsiders. This Native American tradition is in itself a wonderful proof for the existence of the controversial structures, right? So imagine if it was just some, Europeans settling there and saying, "Hey, we found something," and the Indians say, "Well, we never know, we don't know nothing about that." But the actual local legends there go far back about this, and many different tribes that actually moved out of that area brought it with them, as the Mandan, Jaki, all that. In 1990, Dr. Schertz was able to speak with a tribal elder and keeper of the War Rock, who was quite literally on his deathbed. He told Dr. Schertz, who had won the old man's respect and confidence, that the large structure lying in the deeper part of Rock Lake was indeed a place of ancient worship, once revered as the temple of the moon goddess, to whom the whole lake had been consecrated. The known lunar aspects of the site confirmed the elders' tradition. Just north of Rock Lake, a farmer plowing his field in the dried riverbed uncovered a smooth, round stone decorated with tiny crescent moons. Remarkably, an identical stone was later discovered at the south end of the lake, not far from the southeast shore. Someone found a crescent moon masterfully carved from a single piece of obsidian. Then there is the northern orientation of the Limnatis temple of the moon goddess, an orientation associated with the lowest lunar horizon at other prehistoric ceremonial centers in North America, such as Ohio's Octagon Mound. We recall too the celestial alignments discovered, again by Dr. Schertz, at the Temple Mound of Aztalan, astronomical coordinates which complement Ho-Shunk descriptions of moon and star worship at Rock Lake. All right. Yeah. And that was chapter 10. And we're going to probably end it right there, guys. Yeah, I don't want to make them like too long because, I want people to be able to click on them and you actually sit through them, you know. The 4 hour one, I know a lot of you was like, I don't care about 4 hours. I'll sit through that. A lot of people might scare them away, You know how people are. I was like, I'm like that sometimes. I see, I don't know if I want to sit through 4 hours, but I'll try. I do, and I actually do that with a lot of people's videos. But that was chapter 10. Chapter 11 looks really good, guys. It says here the monster of Rock Lake. You can't really see it. All right. Oh yeah. Oh, wow, wow. The monster of Rock Lake. Oh, you can't even see it. There we go. Monster of Rock Lake. That sounds like a very interesting chapter. One second, guys. All right. So I hope you guys enjoyed the reading. We did chapters 4 through 10. That was a lot of chapters. All right. And we're getting through the book. We're literally, I think, a little past halfway. And it seems like it's really gonna talking about a lot of interesting stuff. So we'll get through it, definitely. We'll get through it. We'll see what we can learn and pick up out of this. Pull out the babies out the bathwater. Again, shout out to Drop Nation. Dedicate the video to Con Drop. Make sure he sent me the hat. He sent me the shirt. This is long ago. I never even asked for it. He said, "Hey man, send you. Give me an address, man. I'll send it to you." And I was like, "Okay, thank you." And I rock it all everywhere. I rock it all the time. You know what it says in the back? If they can't tell you who you are, then how can they tell you who you're not? Right? Again, if they can't tell you who you are, how can they tell you who you're not? All right. That was the book. Again, The Lost Pyramids of Rock Lake, Wisconsin's Sunken Civilization. All right. We're going to go out with a little jam here. We're going to go out with a little jam. I appreciate everybody that's tuned in today, on your Saturday. Thank you for reading along with me. Well, not reading along, but listening to me read. A little different, right? A little different than me showing the actual book. But, sometimes, guys, trust me, you don't understand how much easier this is for me. I know I want to actually show the book. I still like doing it like that while I'm reading because I like to help people who may be hearing impaired. And that's why I actually do it. It's not just to show the sources. So, you know, but thanks for tuning in, and thanks to all my Patreons and everything, keeping me afloat always. And I'm able to buy these books. I wouldn't even have this book, because you'd be like, should I get this that I actually need for my family, or Could I get the book? But now, with your help, I'm able to get both. You know what I mean? Like, oh yeah, I got a little extra. I'm gonna get the book. Yeah, I'm gonna get this book, whatever it costs. You know, and it's been a great read. It's been a really great read. The Monster of Rock Lake, Chapter 11. Hey, now remember what they were saying, that all these professional divers and everything, they've dived dived in the craziest places with sharks, erupting volcanoes underwater, you know, crazy places, and they were never afraid. But when they dived in the Rock Lake, they felt terror. The author says he felt like he was being watched, you know, and then he said bubbles were coming up. He went all the way to the bottom. Seemed like there was bubbles coming out of the tops of these places, and he said that's usually associated in ancient cultures as dragon layers. All right, and then he started mentioning Loch Ness, and you know, it just made you think. You know, we're talking about possible Dracan layer here. What's going on? And what is this place? What was it anciently? Is it one of these biblical lands or spots, cities that was destroyed? Who knows? They're saying they're worshiping. Were they really worshiping? You know, is that your interpretation of what you think you're finding? Um, you know, so again, we dodge the hijack when we're reading these books, and it's not like we take everything word for word, but you gotta follow up on what he's saying and who he dealt with. These professional divers and geologists, you know, archaeologists, anthropologists, and you know, these diving experts, and follow up on the stories. You can see it's all legit. The legends of the local indigenous people. This is all legit. There's something under there. They never told us about this. And so again, Wisconsin, be proud. You got your own little Atlantis, as the author said. You got your own little Atlantis. All right. So you know, like I said, we still here. You know, all of it didn't sink. All of it didn't sink. Second, guys. I'm gonna give a shout out to the artist called Nefex. You know, I don't know if you'll ever watch my videos or anything, but his music is on the YouTube free audio library, and he makes pretty good, kind of like, you know, music. He has some pretty good lyrics in his songs, and I wanna I wanna I wanna go ahead and end with one of those jams. You know, it's called "Till I'm on Top." All right, listen to the words, relate a lot to it. You know, especially to the haters that came through today. Dedicate this to the haters that came through today, and I had to put in a timeout like little kids. This jam is for you, and everybody that tuned in, thank you very much for the love. All the people who donated, if you did, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And don't worry, we're gonna finish the book. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you guys enjoyed these chapters. It seems like it's gonna get good. All right. Again, we're just through the middle of the book. Thank you, thank you. Wow, 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 wow. Yeah, pura vida, mi gente.
Never stop, I'll get it if I want it. Gotta make to myself a promise. I won't quit, keep going till I got it. I won't give up till I'm on top.
Yo, no, I ain't the type to give up. If I do something, man, I do it till I get what I want. I turn a business out of nothing into something I love. I got a poker face, but honestly, I'm not one to bluff. I flip a switch, never miss, man, I always stay up. Don't let them see you, bitch, always have a plan to stay tough. This life ahead of you ain't easy, it was built to be rough. But that's what makes a personality, is tragedy, bruh. So keep your head on your shoulders. Now we ain't out here moving rocks, we out here moving boulders. Now we ain't getting posterized, we out here making posters. And we ain't got nothing to hide, we move forward like soldiers. You better wake up for the pay stub, or you'll pay up. Don't make love to the game, bruh, fuck the game up. Change up, rearrange stuff to your greatness. Famous for the way up, play the game, bruh.
Never stop, I'll get it if I want it. Gotta make to myself a promise. I won't quit, keep going till I got it. I won't give up till I'm on top, yeah.
You know I'm always honest, there ain't no way I'm ever stopping.
I won't quit, keep going till I got it. I won't give up till I'm on top,
I'm always flirting with pain, she like to hurt me and maim. I'm always working to change, but she's still lurking the same. I keep on building a dynasty. See, while the haters be trying me, but they hate from inside. You see, hate themselves in society, so I let them speak quietly while my actions speak wider. See, they be hiding in privacy with the screen. Oh, the irony to hate someone who's trying to be whatever they would like to be. We all feel the anxiety, we make our own rivalries. Yo, so where is all the positivity? I feel like we all just hate on everything, it's killing me. Thoughts build quick, causing different possibilities. Negative thoughts will cause different disabilities. So do better, work hard under pressure. If you got no time, work smarter than ever. Don't ever let them tell you that you can't ever say never. And turn your mind into the truest of go-getters.
Never stop, I'll get it if I want it. Gotta make to myself a promise. I won't quit, keep going till I got it. I won't give up till I'm on top, yeah.
You know I'm always honest. There ain't no way I'm ever stopping.
I won't quit, keep going till I got it. I won't give up till I'm on top, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Oh yeah. Just getting started. I ain't going nowhere. Yeah, wow. Pura vida.